Hello and welcome. Good morning, good afternoon. I'm excited to have you for today's webinar, Elevating Your Backup and Recovery Strategy. My name's Josephine and I'm going to be your moderator for today. Before I get started though, I'd like to cover some housekeeping items, please. First of all, in GoToWebinar, depending on if you're using the desktop version or the web version, you have an option to submit questions, and that's what you can do where you see the little A there on the pictures. But please don't only submit questions that way. Submit your thoughts, your feedback, your comments on what we're talking about today. We would love to hear from you. And then where you see the little B, we uploaded a little handout for you. That's our data sheet with our product portfolio, so you can see what's going on over here at Nova Backup. And next up, we will record this webinar. So if you want to listen to it at a later point or share it with colleagues and friends, you can do that. Give us about a day or two till we have the recording ready, and then we'll send it out via email. And one last thought on if you have any audio issues. Well, if you can't hear me right now, I'm sorry that you can't hear me, but I hope you see the mouse wiggling on the area. You can't hear us talk. So if you have any audio issues, just check your speaker, make sure your audio is turned on. But if none of this helps, GoToWebinar has a great troubleshooting guide that you can easily Google, or you see the link down there to figure things out. And who is going to tell you more about backup and recovery strategies today? That is specifically Nathan Forge, our VP of Strategic Solutions, and Adam Stufflake, our Cloud Business Manager. Both of them have extensive experience in the backup and generally IT reseller and managed service provider world. Nate has been with us with Nova Backup for nearly 20 years now. Before that, he's also worked at various managed service providers, and he is responsible for our product team and our support team. And Adam has been with us for nearly 10 years now. He's also worked at various MSPs and is responsible for our customers so they can get the most out of their backup solution. And both of them have a wealth of knowledge that they're excited to share with you today. So I don't want to keep you waiting any longer. Nate, why don't you take it away?
Thanks, Josephine. Yeah. Between Adam and I, we have a lot of knowledge, and some of the things that we see more often than not is when people are coming to us and trying to, talk about software, kind of learn about the software and learn about what they need to do, or worst case, after something has happened, they come to us and say, "Oh, I need to do a recovery," and the basics of some of the things that we see that are not even put together is the thing that's most concerning, and that's kind of why Adam and I kind of said we want to do a webinar kind of like this. Some of the things are going to be seem very basic, but if you don't have these basic building blocks there, it's going to be very difficult for you to recover when something actually does happen. We're talking about simple things like knowing your data, knowing Adam's going to go through some of these things, and knowing your data, knowing your infrastructure and that type of thing, understanding what you need to do and when you need to do it on your recovery goals, kind of combining the knowledge that you kind of gathered from that first couple exercises and kind of putting that together to build your backup and recovery plan. And then one of the most important things that we see over and over again is documentation for yourself on for your business, for your customers. It is very key, especially when it really hits the fan and you need to get back up and running. Having that documentation is very, very key. So with that being said, that's kind of where we're going to go with this webinar. Please, if there's any questions or comments during this, please let us know. We'll kind of address them as we go, but we'll also do a Q&A at the end. With that said, I'll hand it over to Adam just to kind of go over some of the stuff on knowing your data and infrastructure.
Alrighty, thanks, Nate. Yeah, so it kind of all starts out on, you want to protect the data, but first you got to know exactly what the data is, and not what, but where. Right? Where are people accessing it? Where is it being saved? How are they accessing it? What's going to be critical what's still critical, and sometimes the mistake is like critical just means it changes all the time. That's everybody's working on it daily and all that stuff, and that's true. A lot of times it is, but I think what a lot of people do will overlook the archival aspect of it. The importance. It still can be very, very critical. And I think some of you who are even on the webinar today are part of that, right? Whether you're working with maybe medical, or the big one recently now is law enforcement, right? How long that they got to keep stuff. You might have someone's cam on their vest and they took a certain video of this or whatever it is that comes into a lawsuit. It might be 3, 4, 5 years old. That's just as critical as the data that's being changed every single day. So identifying the data is, numero uno, right? You got to figure out what you need, what's critical, what's not. And just because something's not critical doesn't mean you don't need to back it up, right? But that's also why there's all these different types of backup strategies, which we're going to talk about, right? How you can handle the critical data, how you can handle the less critical data, how fast you're going to be able to get that critical data back, things like that as well. What I see a lot of times right now, and I think this is just because a lot of people are short on time, is they come in, they set up their backup job, and the first thing they do is they go through and they just select every single drive. Now, do you grab everything? Sure. But then you're just assuming that all data is created equal, essentially, right? And that's not really true. I don't want to say this, but it's kind of the lazier way to do it. But you can't take that approach, right? You got to know where this data is. You got to go and find it. Certain programs save certain things in different default locations, or maybe someone changed it before you even took over control of that particular data, right? But again, identifying it, knowing where it is, the infrastructure, meaning, is it on a NAS device? How old is that NAS device? Is it on a server? All these different things come into play when the identification of data, but that's where it all starts, right? So anything to add, Nate, before we pop to the next slide?
Just a couple quick things. Something that you kind of touched on, but we see it more often than not, is as an MSP, a partner, or internal IT guy, you set up your backup jobs and everything's going good, and then all of a sudden, I'll call it shadow IT comes in. Some random user comes in and installs something, and all of a sudden there's a critical piece of data that is now being produced and saved that might not be in the spot where you're actually backing up data. So being able to routinely refresh that is also good. The other thing is the where the data is at. Where the data is at is getting harder and harder to deal with. I mean, Nova Backup, for instance, we have Office 365. So all of our emails and OneDrive and that type of thing is up in Office 365. And that stuff needs to be backed up, making sure that, if you're using some sort of web-based hosted thing, that you have the ability to back up and recover that data. You can't rely on, your third party that you're paying for that hosted stuff to be able to manage and deal with your data. You have to have some sort of idea of how can I get this data out of here on this web thing. Office 365 is a great idea. I mean, the day that we were able to shut off our local Exchange server, it was a very happy day. but now it's another thing that we have to make sure that we take care of for backup and recovery. So that's one of the things that when you're thinking about your data and infrastructure, that we really want to make sure you're thinking about everything that you're using there.
Yeah, especially when people are forced to work from home. We all probably experienced it, right? Last 3 years was chaotic. Control of data was probably out of control. So yeah, just piggybacking off of what you're saying, like knowing where it's at, where it's been, who has access to it. But yeah, equally important.
All right, cool.
All right, so we've identified all the data. We figured out what's important, what's mission critical, now we need to figure out what is the exact needs when it comes to the recovery, right? What particular thing do you need when you're going to, like when someone calls you, or whether you're an MSP or whether you're the IT person or whoever, someone reaches out to you and they now have done something, right? They've maybe deleted something by accident. We're talking more of a lower level disaster recovery, right? Is it a single file? How quickly can you get that particular file back? Was it mission critical, right? Was it a database that everybody's working on at one time? Again, that all comes with first with identifying it, and then how fast do you need to be able to recover it, and what specific point in time can you, reach back and get that particular version of that file. So again, it's RPO and RTO. I think most people are familiar with that. If not, it just simply means restore point objective and restore time, right? How far back can I get a particular version of a file, and how fast can I get that? And that all kind of deals with all the different types of media that you're going to put this on. We're obviously going to start talking about that in a little bit as well. But again, it's really going to come down from location to location, customer to customer, and what they need to keep going, right? Is it an entire loss? How am I going to get back an entire system, right? There's going to be different styles of images, particularly here at Nova Backup. We do a couple different ways. We do bare metals, but also at the same time, we can kick out the image to a VHD or VHDX, which is really handy, right? You can mount that virtual disk, grab what you need, or again, system fails. How fast can I get that machine back up? Well, I can pop into Hyper-V, mount that particular VHDX and get back and going. Or total loss, right? And this is the thing we probably all fear, because not only the fact that the data's lost, but probably the event that actually occurred, right? Fire, theft, flood, tornado, earthquake, whatever it was, ransomware, right? What happens if I need to get back everything, right? These are all the things you need to think about. And again, this is all in combination with where am I putting the data in regards to the media, frequency of the backups, right? How fast am I going to be able to get this back? And these all comes into play when you're going to be testing this out, because again, data is growing and growing. So, I was MSP long ago, and I thought a lot of data was 100 gig, and that's nothing, right? Nowadays, it's like, well, I need to recover 2 terabytes of data, and it's 4 million files. Well, you better hope that you have a very good structure down and understand your recovery needs on that amount of data, because there's going to be time, right? You better have a good strategy, whether it's local, offsite, combination of both. But again, we're going to get more into that down the road as well. So there's lots of different things, but there's a lot of different options in here that you're going to have to cover. And this comes into testing this type of stuff. And again, we're going to talk about that in a little bit. So again, RTO, RPO, very, very important. However big or small that recovery need is, you should have a plan for it. You should have an idea where you're going to grab it from and what point you need, and you should be able to do that stuff very quickly. Okay. Anything else, Nate, you want to add?
No, the only other thing that we see sometimes that kind of gets overlooked is when something drastic happens like that fire flood or what have you, and it happens more often than you would think.
Oh yeah.
Something that often gets overlooked is, okay, I can restore all the data and that type of thing, but where do I restore it to? I mean, I don't have any machines anymore. I don't have anything else. So making sure to come up with plans on, if something like that does happen, what are you going to be recovering to? How do you stand everything back up? That's part of your recovery needs in this plan. So we need to make sure that we take care of that too. Not just how my backup is, but how is that recovery going to look like, and how am I going to get back up and running?
Yeah, I mean, you might have people sitting in the parking lot of McDonald's or Starbucks going off of Wi-Fi for a couple of days. It's happened. We have a lot of people that do it.
Heard it. I think between Adam and I, we've heard it all. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's you got to be prepared. But yeah.
Awesome. All right. Speaking of building and everything else, what we kind of want to talk about just briefly here. I'm not going to get into in-depth stuff on this. Is kind of the different options that you have for backup, and what it kind of means for your recovery. You hear terms as full, differential, incremental forever, all these other things, reverse incremental and stuff like that. What all that kind of talks about is how much data is being backed up, and then more importantly, how does the recovery kind of look like? So when you're going through your basically a recovery plan and that type of thing, you need to look at how do I need to recover from what type of backups I've had, but whether it's a image backup, just file level backup applications such as SQL, Exchange, VMware, Hyper-V. What does that recovery look like, along with what am I storing my backups to? Is it USB disk, NAS, RDX, cloud, even tape, another server, what have you. There's all sorts of different things that you can store data to. So what is that storage medium going to look like? Where is that located? And that where that is located really does matter. It seems weird, but we've had more fire floods and specifically more fires, it seems like, in the last 3 months in the beginning of the 3 months of this year than I think I've seen for a long time. So making sure that you do have a good offsite backup, whether it's cloud, cloud is a great option, whether it's USB offsite, tape offsite, or another NAS that you're replicating data to that's offsite. Something you need to make sure that you have some sort of backup and recovery plan that deals with that offsite location. I know sometimes it's painful, but you need to make sure that you have something, because if you don't have it, it's going to be very painful if you don't have something that is offsite and what I would call gapped from your normal network. So if you have some sort of NAS replication, making sure that NAS replication can have different snapshots or other things, so that if ransomware comes in or if something else happens to your main site, that it's not just replicating the bad data off to it. When you're talking about cloud, making sure that your cloud provider, has options for that ransomware and different recovery options for versions of files. Same with your offsite USB or tape, making sure that that's stored in a good spot, and not thinking that you have a good backup over there at wherever you're storing it and it's been melted or erased because of whatever. Making sure that that's all good. And then encryption is another thing. I think a lot of people take it for granted that you want to encrypt everything. In most cases, I would say that's true, especially when you're talking about offsite. But in some cases, like if you're trying to do like images or something like that, it might not make sense to do the encryption if you want to be able to spin that machine up very quickly. It also depends on what your rules and regulations of your business really requires on the encryption side. So thinking through that and making sure that you're compliant with those things is a good thing. Adam, anything that I might have glossed over on this?
No, I'm just going to add on it, because I think a lot of people, when they're saying like, oh, you should add this maybe, or maybe an extra NAS offsite, and people think of dollar signs, and the hardest thing is ever, whether you're an IT person going to the chief financial officer with your budget, or if you're an MSP that you're going to your customer with like, look, this is the cost. It's really hard to push through sometimes, but I always use this analogy. Treat it like an insurance. None of us really like insurance, right? We see the deduction from our pocketbooks and all that fun stuff. But I tell you what, when I have to go get my teeth x-rayed and like 56 videos of them, or my x-ray of my body, or whatever it is, I tell you what, when I have the insurance, it's a peace of mind, because I can tell you when I look at the bill what the actual bill is if I lost it, and you can compare that to loss of like productivity time for their business. It makes an impact. You still might not sell on all of them, but I tell you what, if you use that analogy, it helps a lot.
Well, I think you're right, Adam. It's something that we see pushback from partners and MSPs and end users, all the alike. They're like, oh, I don't want to spend the money for a new NAS. This NAS that's 5 years old is fine. I'm like, yeah, a new NAS might only be like $1,500, and if you spread that across 3 years, that's pretty cheap insurance.
Exactly. They need to look at it like that. It's a long-term investment.
Yeah,
But yeah, it's still a hard sell, but yeah, you got to break it down for them. Yep.
exactly. Okay, cool. All right, this slide looks like the Matrix. It's like, oh, what is all this stuff? What we're trying to kind of view here, and we'll not stay on this slide too much. This is kind of how Adam was talking about breaking that data up into different types of, I'll call it quadrants of priority. So that business critical data changes a lot. That's the stuff that you really need to make sure that you have a low RPO, low RTO. So you can recover to a very short amount of time. So recover it very quickly and make sure that it's to the as how do you want to say, you're losing the least amount of data as possible. Let's put it that way. And what I kind of want to do is show a couple of examples on this to make it a little bit more palatable there. So on the left-hand side, we have a business critical and data changes a lot. So this is the stuff that you really need to make sure that you take care of, that you have you can recover it as quickly as possible, you can get going as quickly as possible. Whereas the stuff on the right-hand side, the not business critical and data doesn't change a lot. It's stuff that you need, but it's one of those things where it's not changing a lot, and it might be okay if it takes a week to get back or something like that. Whereas the business critical data, you need to make sure that you get that back as quickly as possible. So we kind of gave, I'll call it t-shirt size type ideas on what you could do here. This is going to depend a lot on what your business looks like, what the customer business looks like, and what you're willing to spend on being able to back up and recover as quickly as possible. So, on the left-hand side with the business critical data, doing a daily differential, a weekly full, for your file level backups, putting that to like a local disk or NAS, along with making sure that you have a cloud backup on that. So you have your offsite and onsite covered. That makes a lot of sense. And for your weekly image, basically making sure that you can recover from that very quickly. So you have a weekly image. So at the very, very most, what it's going to take is you do your weekly image, you recover that weekly image, and then you recover your last diff that is closest to that, to the date that the thing happened. So something like that makes a lot of sense, and you can recover quite quickly, especially if you're using like our VHDX option with our images, where you can actually spin up a VM from that image itself. That makes a lot of sense. Conversely, if you look at the not business critical data, maybe I'm only doing monthly full and a weekly differential. Maybe that's just a lot of archive data that, I want. Maybe it's project data for some CAD drawings or what have you that haven't been touched in 5-6 years. I still want to make sure I have that, but it doesn't make sense to back it up every week or something like that. Even monthly might be too often. If you have like an archive type situation where I only want to do a yearly backup of that particular archive folder or quarterly or what have you, looking at how that data is used really helps. Making sure that it's covered in the way that you need. Adam, is there anything else that you wanted to really touch base on this side of things?
No, I mean, I think that's it. I think there's so many ways you could do it. Customer is going to be a little bit different, right? But this is a good base plan, template, whatever you want to call it, that you can go off of, that you can use. But it's really going to come down to how, you as an IT or an MSP, what's it's going to take to get the customer back and rock and rolling. So.
Okay, sounds good. I will pass it over to you to talk about one of the more important things, documentation.
Oh man, yeah. So, I mean, one of the most valuable things, in my opinion, that you can have as a company, whether, again, it doesn't matter if you're an MSP or if you're an actual company with an IT group or whatever, is knowledge. Knowledge usually comes with experience. Like Nate and I were talking about, just our combined experience in the backup world. That's a lot of knowledge that we can bring into a particular company that we can also share, not with the company, but even new hires and things like that. And the biggest thing you want to do is retain that some way, somehow. And I'm going to tailor myself back because I could probably do an entire PowerPoint on documentation, but but it's just super important to write things down, right? Whether you're probably going to want to do a physical copy, you want to have a digital copy, and controlling access to these things and all that stuff. So not just actually having documentation, but controlling it, making sure that it's passed down, to future people that are going to be working, because eventually, Nate and I ain't going to be around, or you're not going to be around, whoever's on the webinar, right? You want to make sure you share this knowledge. Everybody's on the same page when they're going into a particular scenario, or they're going to customer A here. What's the backup plan? What did you do, right? We talked about all these building blocks. That should be a part of this documentation. What data did you identify? What's the most important? How often are we going to back up that set of data? Where are we going to put that data? What mediums are we going to do? Cloud, offsite, whatever it is. Are we going to be doing imaging? All these things should be a part of that backup plan and should all be documented. Especially things like keys. You see license keys, things like that. License keys are important, yes. Even more important, if I could bold and make that red, is the encryption keys. When we were talking about compliances and things like that, encryption, putting data to the cloud, anything, if you don't remember these keys, in most scenarios, you're not going to get that data back. We've seen it. We've seen where it wasn't documented either, and then something happened where that guy's not around anymore. Some guy comes in to fill his shoes and he's like, well, now what, right? We have some scary stories. We don't need to share them all, but I think you guys probably even have your own. And I can't stress enough how important it is to write everything down in some type of format. Like I said, digital copies, physical copies, in-house, wherever it is, everybody needs to be aware of where that is. And again, documenting all that backup stuff that you did, but then that also transitions into recovery, right? So you got a strong backup plan, but what about the recovery plan? Testing, right? A lot of people that we talk to, they don't test. Sometimes they think that they just don't have time to do it. But setting aside quarterly even, right? I mean, you don't have to do monthly. Monthly would be awesome if you do, but quarterly testing of that stuff. What did I do? What did I recover? How long did it take? What did I restore from that took that much time, right? And then you're getting real world numbers, right? I pulled down X amount of data in X amount of time. Not only is that really important for you to obviously relay to your particular company and your coworkers, but I tell you what, if I was a customer and I come to one of you and I say, look, Bob next door, he's an accountant. He lost everything, right? It's been 2, 3, 4 days. He's still not back up. And that makes me think, what happens if I lose everything? And if I come to us or you and you don't have a good answer for me, I can tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to get on Google and I'm going to find the closest service provider that can possibly offer that. Because I could tell you what would please me, like to the utmost, level, would be if you can just answer me first of all verbally. That would be great. But I tell you what, if later down the road you're like, I tell you what, Mr. Stufflick, I'll even email you a copy of a test that we've done, right? That would, man, boom, I'm at ease at that point. And I tell you what, I really wouldn't be looking at dollar signs next time. If you have to tell me you have to up my, monthly or yearly subscription because you're adding on X amount of like testing, I'm all for it. Not everybody will be for it, right? But I'll tell you what, adding value to your company, being able to document something like that and share that documentation with a customer or with even your internal IT group or the uppers, right? With the 3 letters, CFOs, IOs, and TOs and all that, you're going to look good. So documentation, I can't stress this enough, how important this is. It makes your life easier, and not just you as a company, but also your customers. And then that word of mouth spreads and the rest. So I'll stop there. I can keep going, like I said, but anything else you want to add, Nate, before we transition back?
You touched on something that I was gonna kind of go after, but you already kind of said it. Having being able to show that, hey, I did this restore. I'm testing the backups, that type of thing. It can help if you're from an MSP point of view, a partner point of view, but it also helps a lot for internal. Say it's just a company that small company that you're trying to get a little bit more money for replacing the NAS or something like that, or
Mhm.
doing any, getting cloud storage, being able to show the business owners that, hey, this is what it would look like right now if we did a recovery. It could be good and could be bad, so that can be a good way to kind of justify, hey, right now with our current setup, it's going to take 5 days to get back up, but if we spend, a couple grand or something like that, it would take 1 day or half a day or something like that. That can be a pretty big motivating factor for management to spend some money where it's really needed. Because
Agree.
they
Yeah.
realize how much money that would cost them.
I mean, an extra 10 minutes, if you're already on site doing your testing, pull the guy that's writing the checks aside real quick. Just boot up their machine in the VM in Hyper-V real quick. Hey, look, here's your machine. If this machine, you could point at their piece of hardware, goes down, we got you here. I mean, that just stuff like that just goes a really long ways. So
Yeah, give some warm and fuzzies there. Yeah,
yeah, 100%.
I think that's it on my side. I
Same.
think
Yeah, we can kick it back to Josephine to close
yeah,
us
we'll
out.
kick
We'll
back
get
over
into some
there.
Q&A.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. That was a lot of good stuff. And to wrap it up a little bit, I kind of want to leave our audience with a thought. Everything that you've presented with, hey, you have to analyze your data, you have to understand what your data you have to look at what your recovery requirements are, right? How quickly you want to have stuff back, and then looking at and combining that all with, okay, what can a backup software do, and how should I set up all of these backups? That looks daunting, right? Like that's a lot of stuff to think about, and it can feel just overwhelming on, okay, I have to do all of these things, but what's the alternative, right? So if you think about, it's your data, it's your company's data. If that data is gone, what happens to your company? So it's, as Adam and Nate already said, it's an insurance, right? But it's kind of something that is often underestimated. In the IT world, you have all of these tools out there, encryption tools and other preventative measures like antivirus software and security tools and all that kind of stuff. But none of this gets your data back if something happens because they're not 100% effective, right? Things can happen. And backup is really the only solution that gets your information back, that gets your company back up and running in case something happens. Your data is the backbone of your business. If that's gone, that's a huge problem, right? So that's why we talk about those things to help you, take off that daunting exercise a little bit of how to approach this. And I hope what Adam and Nate shared helps you with that and gives you a good kind of structure on where you can get started and what things to think about. And then from a backup perspective, if you need any help, we're here for you. Nova Backup is a solution that helps you with these strategies both Nate and Adam have talked about. We're supporting the variety of ways on how you can set up your backup so you can restore it based off of your restore requirements. We're supporting various storage mediums and all those things. Again, I'm pointing out the data sheet that we added into the handout section, so feel free to download that to just get an overview of what we're doing, what we're supporting, and then reach out to us, request a trial, talk to us if you just want to get an idea of what could be done or how to set up your backup strategy. Nate and Adam are always happy to talk about these things, as you just realized. And then before we get into the questions, so please feel free to start typing in your questions. There's one thing that I wanted to mention because March 31st is World Backup Day. And that's the reason why we talk to you about those things, right? Because it is important to remind yourself every now and then that, hey, backup is important. I need to look at my stuff. I'll send you in the chat 2 links real quick to a landing page that we prepared for World Backup Day where you can find a bit more information about backup. You can download some more material, some more informative material. We have a couple of deals currently available till March 31st. I'll send you 2 links, one for our end users and one for our partners. We have 2 different sites for that, so you can take a look at that. And then lastly, we are getting to your questions now. So again, if you want to contact us, here are the contact information. But while we're having this up, Nate, I see there are a handful of questions coming in. Do you want to get started on those?
Yeah, certainly. The first one's pretty interesting. The first one is talking about, you know, in a roaming profile type situation where data is growing and your profiles are changing, how do you kind of deal with the exponential growth of that data within those roaming profiles as years go on? And one of the things that makes a lot of sense to me is kind of looking at what those roaming profiles look like, and within almost every piece of software out there for backup, including Nova Backup, you can have some exclusions based on file type, file location, that type of thing. Getting a idea of, again, what's important in those roaming profiles to actually be back up, you know, especially when your backup windows are getting smaller and smaller and your data keeps growing, maybe some of that stuff really isn't that important. Do you need to be backing up, Susie's MP3s or whatever that they put in their downloads of their roaming profile or what have you? Something like that is, being able to kind of cull some of that data that might be in there, and maybe not back that up every day, or maybe doing that monthly backup or something like that for, again, that non-important business data. I think would help, especially when you're talking about those shrinking backup windows. Question about technical support. So something that I don't know that everyone knows that's on this webinar. We have technical support available out of our U.S. office, California mostly. Adam might be is in Arizona, but I mean, generally all of our U.S. support is based out of California, and then we also have a office in Germany where we do have support people. So we cover pretty much, a pretty good gambit of the day with those to support locations. So if you're in Australia, India, or something like that, it might be a little bit inconvenient, but we do have options for support in that. Yeah. Let's see. That's pretty good. Adam, did you have anything else that you wanted to talk about on the questions that you might have seen that I missed?
No, I mean, I think a lot of the stuff that we mentioned was pretty good. I mean, I did see one here. I think maybe that came in actually while we were talking. Sufficient offsite, media essentially is what they're asking. And honestly, anything that if because their customer doesn't, so I should have just read the actual question. Sorry, but their particular client doesn't really trust cloud. Right, that's the census
Oh,
of it.
yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I mean, we run into it too a lot. And honestly, anything offsite, and offsite can mean just even off premise, right? We mentioned it earlier. You can take different types of media, put it in a secure location, or like Nate said, invest in a good set of NAS devices. And again, it doesn't have to break the bank. Do some research, see what companies support the replication between those, and there's your offsite. Right, and if they start trusting cloud in the future, you can always add that on pretty easily through just about anything, especially with us. So,
yeah, and if you have questions about devices or something like that, or want recommendations, we're open for that too. Here's something. Sometimes Adam and I have been at this for a long time, and sometimes we gloss over the simple things. How do you test your backup? That's a great question.
Yeah.
And it's something that we didn't really even think about. Testing your backup is simply trying to do a recovery. Try to restore some file. If you're doing a file level backup, try to recover some random files to an alternate location. Make sure that you can recover them. If you're doing an image level backup, you can just simply mount the image within our product, or whatever product you're using, to make sure that, hey, this backup is good. I can see the data. You don't have to go through a full restore or anything like that. Just making sure that archive and backup is good. You can recover sample sets of random data. That's what we're really talking about on a simple test.
Yeah, and I will stress this: when Nate said alternate location, please do that, because a lot of times people will restore to original location, and that will overwrite those files, right? It's putting it right to back to where. So use that option, especially in our software. It's really simple. When you're on the restore tab, you hit the settings button. It's literally right in your face. You just choose alternate location. It throws it in there, and then you can test it. And if you can see it and open it up your Word doc, for example, then you know it's a peace of mind. So it doesn't have to be strenuous. You can do the image thing like Nate said. It's pretty cool. You can mount that, but just grab some files randomly. Make sure things are where it's at. And if it's not, you know, and if you're working with us, then reach out to our support and we'll help you out. We have different, and I'm going to roll this right into the next one. When it says regarding support, can we actually talk to support? Yeah. We don't bury our support behind everybody, behind about 50 extensions or anything like that. We have really simplistic support where you can go in, request support, which opens up a ticket. And I'll tell you this, a lot of times people will say, oh, that's just, you know, a way to not talk to me. But I tell you what, the way that our ticketing system works, it actually is a method and a way to gather information before we even talk to you. Because honestly, we want to make the best of your time and our time, right? And solve your problem quickly. So don't think that we're always just trying to push you to a ticket system. We talk to people. I talk to people all day. I'm almost hoarse after the day's over, but I love talking about it. I love supporting. But yeah, our support's real easy to work with. You can find it on the webpage. It's just right there. It's right at the top, right? We don't hide it. So yeah, try it out.
Yeah, one other thing that I really like about what we do with support is we actually have an option for you to straight up schedule a time that works best for you, that we're available for support. It create, you know, how it works on our side is actually creates a meeting for us within our Outlook and that type of thing, and it actually blocks that time off. So we actually have time to make sure that, you know, we're giving you the best support that we can, and it also makes sure that you're not waiting on hold or anything like that, and you're not in the middle of something when we're getting back to you. It's a dedicated time for that support, and it works really well, especially if you know you're going to like a customer location or something like that. That works really well. But I mean, there's other cases where, hey, I need to recover something, you know, right now, you know, shoot an email to us, you know, along with shoot us a call on our number, and we'll get back to you real quick. I mean, most of the time, the response time is well within 10-15 minutes, you know, during business hours.
Yes. Yep. Here's actually a really good question when we're talking about retention
I
and
see it
things
too.
like
Yep.
that.
Go ahead,
Yeah.
Adam.
So yeah, Joseph. Yeah. So essentially, for a daily backup to the cloud, 3-month retention, would I be able to restore a database that changes daily to any particular day in the past 3 months? 100%. You could do that, and also to different types of media, right? They could be local backups. It could be cloud. Particularly, you know, cloud right now, the way that we work, it's super easy. You're going to go to the restore tab. You're going to go to your particular media, in this case, the cloud. Expand that out, and you're going to see a list of dates and times and everything like that. You're going to pick what time frame you want. You're going to see the data that you want to grab, like for example, this database. Now, what's cool about a database, if this is MS SQL, for example, you can not only restore it straight in back to an instance, but you can also restore these databases to an alternate location, giving you the MDF and LDF files. So you can attach them to even a different SQL instance. So it's pretty cool. Yeah, so for what you asked right there, no problem, easy to do, and it gets done a lot. I can tell you that, especially with a lot of our dental customers and things, they're always doing restores.
I think that's going to wrap us up, Adam.
Yeah, yep. Again,
we're
otherwise we're going to get cut off. Yeah.
There's some other questions out there that if we didn't get to you, we will certainly respond via email to make sure everything's answered for you guys. But
Yes.
I really appreciate everyone's time today.
You bet. Take care, everybody.